It definitely is just go Vancouver. It's like my hometown, and like it's kind of like a dream to go play there. I never really thought it was gonna happen, and it's like the year I'm kind of like on a really good team is the year that it's in Vancouver, so it kind of feels like fate for me, but you know, I still have to work really hard to get there.
Phoenix 1 definitely putting in the work so far to get to Vancouver, like you heard just now how badly Inori wants to get there, how much he wants to make that a reality, and they are doing just that right now, 2-0 currently in the series. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as it's time for Game 3 between these two teams.
Yeah, I'm always listening to Inori's language when he's talking about Vancouver, and I feel like he needs to adopt the team play strategy. We need to make it to Vancouver. The more he is separate from the team, I feel like the weaker that bond becomes, but at least in that last game, things do seem to be clicking a lot better.
It was funny because it was kind of both there where he said, it's the year that I'm on a really good team. Not I'm playing well, I'm on a really good team. And then at the end, he's like, but I still have to do well. I still have to work really hard. So it was kind of a mix there. And you could see the guy who kind of said he had a bit of an ego coming out of last split, got placed in check, says, all right, the team can actually function without me, with Meteos in the roster, so I have to work really hard to prove my worth.
And this team that we had a lot of questions about, like, are they going to be running subs? Is it going to be Meteos or Inori? Is it going to be Stunt or Shady? Still not running any of their alternative options.
Yeah, they're answering some of the questions, and they have no need to change as long as they continue to win. The first game was honestly pretty shaky. They fell behind in a lot of ways early on in the game, and if it was not for a few fumbles by Team Dignitas down the stretch, I feel like Team Dignitas wins that game 1. But that last game puts them in such good position for the remainder of this series, the way they dismantled Team Dignitas in game 2.
Yeah, game 1, Stunt, seemed a little nervous, didn't flash a spear, ends up getting first blooded. Game 2, gets first blood off of just no jungle pressure, destroying the bottom lane.
Let's see the players returning to the stage right now. Phoenix 1 hoping to make this the last time today that they have to come back to the stage. They'd love to make this a clean 3-0, but just saying, we did see some other series today go to 5 games if you're watching other regions.
When somebody's up 2-0, yeah.
Reverse sweeps are always a possibility. One player that I want to talk about here is Ryu, because there is so much story coming into this about the substitutes on Phoenix 1 and Nori's redemption, but Ryu has been lights out this series. His Cinder game, when all we were talking about was the team fighting of the Cassiopeia and how Keen's going to be protected, Ryu did 50% more damage than the Cassiopeia and topped that game 1 as the Syndra. And then in that last game was an absolute nuisance on the LeBlanc, drawing 2 and 3 people up towards him and still getting kills.
Yeah, basically Ryu doesn't let Lod play League of Legends in either game, and he's being a huge menace here. And we're throwing another storyline in there as well. Ryu used to be on a team with Someday. Arrow used to be on a team with Someday. These guys are kind of like, we want to prove that this is the right move for us coming to North America, and they're playing their former teammate as well. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, pretty cool feeling for these guys to be up 2-0 against somebody. This is a Dignitas team that, remember, even though they had that rough early start of the split, a lot of people were looking at this team to be a very powerful player in the North American LCS. And granted, they did make it to playoffs. They had a great second half of the split. They managed to work their way up here. But like we mentioned at the start of the game, this is not a series that we were walking into saying, oh, this is going to be a wash because it's 3rd versus 6th. Phoenix 1 are flexing those muscles.
Yeah, this was scouted to be quite a close series because of how Team Dignitas has improved throughout the split. It was really interesting reading the Someday article on Esports, the feature on him, about him coming over here. He actually gets along very well with Chaser and Keen, so that's really helped him with the transition. But after they started the split 1-7, he actually said they refocused their goals on avoiding relegation. So I feel like that was interesting with their backs against the wall, kind of resetting that goal. But now that they've made playoffs and they're looking so strong, they can kind of jump back to the goals they had at the very start of the season. And this is not the first time they have been pushed to the limit. When you start a split that poorly after having such a high-profile acquisition, it is hard to be able to come back, and that only happens with a good team environment.
And even on top of that, we're talking about high-pressure situations, down 0-2 in what would eliminate them from playoffs here. They also had to fight for their spot against Immortals, high-pressure situation where if you're losing games there, losing that match, there's a possibility you don't even make it to this position here. So Dignitas are not unfamiliar with pressure situations.
They've had a lot of obstacles to overcome to even get here so far, but the fact remains they've now got to pull off that reverse sweep dream, that difficulty to have a chance of going on to Vancouver and to the semifinals.
Yeah, and this might be a point in the series where things could normalize a little bit. I definitely feel like the pick ban from Phoenix 1 has been surprising and effective in both games. they have had a very clear plan in all of them. The 5 jungle bans that came out from Phoenix 1 into the Ivern pick in the first game to set up that pick composition that had good late game team fighting, and then Little Blanc with the 1-3-1 that we've seen very little of throughout the split. Both of those things look like they were difficult for Team Dignitas to deal with. You have to wonder if there's a number 3.
Phoenix 1 will be opting into red side yet again. Let's see how this plays into their plan. And Dignitas, first ban. Get that out of my game, they say.
Yep, not getting that again. This is so far the exact same bans as game 1. Shen, different though. It was previously Kha'Zix that Team Dignitas had banned away, and that's where the jungle started getting pinched from Phoenix 1, where they were able to ban out 3, because Dig had already banned out 2 and done a lot of the work for them.
Have to see how that causes Phoenix 1's plan to change, if at all here, considering they won't be able to focus the jungle as hard without their opponents throwing in some of their own bans to help. Lee already banned away, means they're really respecting Chaser's potential on that champion. You mentioned how he's got so many games on it so far, and Graves is the next ban from you.
Yeah, it's also not really an overlapped champion either. Inori has not played a game of Lee Sin this split, and he's been focusing things on more like Kha'Zix, whereas Chaser, it's comfort for him for sure.
Always good to be able to ban one of those away if you know that it's a powerful pick, it's an effective pick, it's one that they play, but you don't. There's really no downside to removing that.
Yeah, especially because it hasn't seemed like Team Dignitas have had those picks that really work for them. So what Phoenix 1 wants to do with their bans is just pick out things that they think could be good, and they have a lot more freedom with what they can do, whereas with Syndra and LeBlanc, those are 2 very targeted bans.
Yeah, the amount of respect Dignitas is showing Ryu right now, taking away both champions that he's played so far in the series.
Yeah, and that leaves up a whole bunch here. Rengar, Lulu. Ban one, team gets the other. If you ban Elise here, you'll at least get one of those 2. And they ban the Camille instead. They don't play it. Zig hasn't played it.
Want to make sure that Someday is kept off of that carry potential. Yeah, Rengar, the hover for Team Dignitas.
I feel like you take it. I feel like you take it away from Inori. And Lulu actually, though, does play well into Rengar.
It's a good pick.
Yeah, and this also can give them over a Nautilus if they want it with the Shen ban. The worry then is, will Team Dignitas have Someday on a more damaging champion? The Lulu's a definite pick for them. The big question then after that is, do they just pick the Nautilus right off the bat?
They could go for a Rumble because the counter that we're seeing is the Camille, and that's the Blanc that we see here. That's the ban that we see from the Camille from Phoenix 1.
Yeah, a lot to decide as well, because Arrow's been so good on things like Ezreal. They're already having a lot of junglers banned, so the Kha'Zix pick is pretty generic to me. It is a very highly played champion by Inori, but since the nerfs, it's very rare we see Kha'Zix take over games.
Well, Nautilus has been left up. We've mentioned before how that is the most played champion for Someday this split, so if Dignitas wants to lock that in for him, they're capable of doing so. Instead, they're going to go ahead and opt for the Ezreal first, getting that one for Laud.
Yeah, it's also a denial pick for Arrow. Arrow's Ezreal has been extremely effective for Phoenix 1.
I wonder if he'll adapt the build and go for Blade of the Ruined King first on Laud's side this time.
Yeah, it's obviously a possibility. It depends on the strategy, right? Arrow had gone, I feel like, for the Blade of the Ruined King build because they wanted the early pressure out of the Ezreal. I usually don't see players copy other players' builds immediately.
Yeah.
I feel like they'll try it first. And since Laud didn't go with that build in game 1 and instead went with the standard, that's what I expect out of him in this game.
Nautilus will be picked up for Someday, so he's on his most played champion. Chaser is on his second most played champion, right behind that Lee Sin, by the way. We'll have to see what Phoenix 1 wants to finish out their own first half of the draft with.
Yeah, we haven't seen it in a while, it feels like, but I was wondering if we're going to see Kled from Zig at any point. Only because they didn't prioritize the Nautilus, even though it has effectiveness. Potentially top lane Fizz here.
Yeah, we have seen the top lane Fizz, the Bruiser style with the Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruined King even potentially.
But this is interesting because it also means that the Nautilus that was potentially flexed last pick ban from Phoenix 1 that they respected by banning Renekton, they could actually be facing that again, where Special might play the Nautilus bottom, and then they get to pick what they want into the Fizz. So Phoenix 1 kind of going against their own philosophy from last champion select, and just saying this Fizz is really strong, especially into Nautilus.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance you can even put the Fizz somewhere else if you really want to.
Yeah, like mid, right?
As well. So a couple of different flex options. I feel like the odds on are top lane Fizz against top lane Nautilus because that's what we've seen before. Now we're into phase of the bans.
2 supports banned away by Phoenix 1, betting that it's not a support Nautilus. Ari banned away by Dignitas, showing even more respect to Ryu.
Actually, I figured it out now, because if it is a support Nautilus, they will know before they pick their mid laner, and then they can flex it. So the last pick here, their mid laner for Phoenix 1, most likely, they'll pick their AD carry, and then their mid and counter pick. And if they see that it's a Nautilus that's going support, they'll know exactly what to do from there.
4 out of 5 bans overall from Dignitas were targeted at Ryu. Are we going to see a Juggernaut with a Lulu and something else maybe to protect it?
You always have the chance, right? You don't even necessarily need something else to have the Kog'Maw have high effectiveness, but you do want to be very comfortable with your overall team composition when you pick that.
I feel like, yeah, they changed over to the Orianna because you would expect maybe to see Orianna be the mid if Kog'Maw's locked in because she can protect him, and they don't want to give that away.
Yeah, a little bit different here, not waiting for the Orianna to be that last pick or the mid lane last pick.
So here's the thing. I didn't mention this last game, but I actually really dislike teams that counter pick with Orianna. I feel like Orianna is almost the blind pick mid laner. So if you're using it as a counter pick, so to speak, it loses a lot of its effectiveness.
Yeah, and this is actually the counter pick that Keen likes to bring into Orianna with the Azir. There's kind of that trinity that was going around where it was like Ryze beats Cassiopeia beats Ryze, etc., and then Orianna beats Cassiopeia. This was kind of the last one on that end that Keen brought up and went, Azir beats Orianna, just outranges her, doesn't let her get in position to throw the ball down. So he's been using it quite frequently. He has 3 games so far this split.
It's a champion that we haven't seen a lot of overall, though. So Keen will have to be.
He's one of the few that still plays it in North America. At this point now, Phoenix 1 does have the options. They have a lot of protection they can bring with Lulu Orianna. I think Caitlyn is actually the pick for it because they destroyed Team Dignitas with lane pressure last game, and the Caitlyn Lulu can apply a lot of that lane pressure, and depending on how the matchup does go in the mid lane between Ryu and Keen, can maybe set up some immensely good pushers early. So there we go.
All right, Caitlyn locked in. That's going to round out the Phoenix 1 roster. Plenty of protection, like you said, for that AD carry, but it's not like scaling is going to be a problem for Dignitas when you have an Azir on your team either.
Sure. Good scaling for both of these teams.
Very much so. Yeah. Both junglers capable of getting the ganks off, getting the damage in there, making the things happen if they can find the opportunity, the windows to do so.
And it's just another clever layer of pick ban for Phoenix 1 where they took the Orianna so early on so that Team Dignitas couldn't have it alongside a Rengar and have another ball composition on top of it. So it's actually just like you were saying, Jet, super good blind pick that rounds out the composition to have protection from the mid lane as well as a support position for Arrow, who's been doing quite well.
I mean, I was all on the train in Week 9 of North American LCS. I felt like every team that picked Ori with Lulu and then threw in Caitlyn would win because you're almost always getting 2 out of 3 winning lanes as well as late game insurance. And another question is, they got the counter pick Fizz into the Nautilus, and I want to see Zig's ability to play this matchup into Someday. Something we haven't talked too much about this series is Zig kind of absorbing Someday. Someday's winning, but it's not necessarily mattering.
And that's what we kind of were talking about, well, not us, but the analysts were talking about before the game started with these 2 top laners. Yeah, Someday might have more ferocious stats, but Zig is able to be the role player, able to be the guy who says, you know what, I'm a top laner, I'm going to do my job, and I'm not going to feed, and we'll win.
Yeah, role player is kind of like a dirty word for top laners where it's like, he's not a carry top laner, he's not a star, he's a role player. It's like, kind of like
he wins.
Slight at him.
Forget that guy.
He wins the game, but he's like, people are like, he's not the reason he wins. No, he actually is, because he's diffusing pressure.
I agree that it is good to have a role-playing top laner, but I actually do feel like it is a little bit of a dirty word. It's to me like calling an NFL quarterback a game manager. It's like, oh, he doesn't have the 40-yard spirals and the touchdown passes, but he wins, so game manager. It's good that he's not making mistakes, but definitely don't want to give him too much praise.
Yeah, of course, you're not going to say he's a superstar or anything or carries the team all the time. But
maybe he does on the Fizz.
Yeah, and sometimes I will say having too many stars, too many cooks in the kitchen can cost you.
Well, one thing I do want to go ahead and touch on real quick because we are seeing some important differences between summoner spells this game. No flash on the Fizz, going for the Ignite instead. A little bit of damage back and forth here at level 1. And the supports also different. Exhaust for special, Ignite for stun.
Yeah, I think it's the first exhaust of the series we're seeing in that bottom lane here. Even when the LeBlanc or the Syndra was in the game, I believe they were both still Ignites.
Ward being placed down by the bottom lane of P1 onto the red buff of Dignitas, just to sort of keep an eye on things here nice and early. Remember, this is do or die for Dignitas. P1 has taken this to match point.
Absolutely, and this time it is Phoenix 1 with the red side Kazakhs. So the jungle matchup's a little different than it was last game. Last game there was Graves on the blue side and completely eviscerated the Kazakhs early on. And Nori is starting Raptors, so I really want to see if he can maintain a healthier clear than Chaser did last match.
Yeah, I was about to say, I want to kind of keep an eye on what he does with his early clear.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't get any leash at all, not even Nori on a ball.
Yeah, so he's going to get pretty low then.
Gonna kite him around, give him a few autos. This will burn them down. Oop. Gets 2 there. That's actually perfect Raptor camp clearing mechanics.
Yeah, he's on point. Chaser cleared away his own red buff. Not really a whole lot to see between these two this early on in the game. Once you got those level 3s, then we might see something a little bit more exciting.
And clearing the jungle is sometimes great to watch. Especially as a jungler, I'm just like, how's he doing it? He just actually put the right amount of autos on all the little ones
To get the burn from the Hunter's Talisman.
Same route, by the way, as Chaser from the last game, but it's just not being punished in the same way.
Yeah. Way healthier, I believe, too. Put
Yeah,
the fight down
a lot healthier.
on the Grug.
Keen currently eating a couple of hits there in the mid lane from Ryu. Remember to keep your eyes on this guy. Done so much work like you talked about, Jat. Just Ryu, the Syndra and the LeBlanc both have been impressive so far. He'd love to round out this series with one last very impressive mid lane performance to take him and his team to semifinals. And Dignitas has to keep that in mind thinking about this guy the entire game.
Yeah, and before it was kind of compositions that allowed Ryu to assassinate and do his thing. Now Ryu can play a little bit more around arrow, and this is where you shield him. He'll walk up to turrets and siege and just give him some extra auto attacks. But Ryu has had some great shockwave plays all throughout the split.
Playoffs buff Ryu has often been a saying. He had a bit of a world buff last year as well on H2K, really helping them through the group stage. So incredibly experienced and had a lot of clutch successes, something that can't necessarily be said from Keen, who last time was in playoffs, if I remember, was on Gravity and did not make it through the first round.
You know, in game number 1, guys, we were talking about, especially in regards to Phoenix 1, the potential for nerves, the potential for inexperience to get to the players and impact their performance. But playoff buff's the exact opposite of that. That just shows that you're able to come in the clutch, get things done, put work in. It's very important.
Well, both Ryu and Arrow have a lot of experience. We talked about the rookies in playoffs for Zig, Inori, and Stunt. Well, Arrow and Ryu have both been in LCK finals. They've both had a lot of experience in terms of playoffs and high-pressure situations. That this is totally fine for them. They're big performers, too. You're looking at the damage dealt in that last game. They're both way far ahead of everybody else.
Chaser and Someday are going to look to make a big play in the top lane, though.
Playful Trickster makes some moves here onto Zig. Someday will be the one absorbing a lot of the turret hits.
If he goes out,
Chaser gets first blood, but then immediately dies in response, tries to get himself away with the flash, but not able to do it. Dignitas at least manages to kill that enemy top laner. He'll lose some farm to the turret now as well. Someday trying to get out before Inori makes his way up here. So they should be fast enough to get out in time.
They had felt confident going for that because we didn't see it, but off screen, Zig had used his E, so they knew he wouldn't have it for that, but they weren't necessarily accounting for the Ignite that definitely helped tick down that kill in the end.
Ooh, singed build here for Zig, going for rings. And so is Someday, so, you know, they're both flinging out the top.
3 Doran's rings.
He really wants the early power.
Yeah, they both do here. But yeah, he had used the Playful Trickster, still had about a 10-second cooldown here. And that root, that's a long anchor straight through the turret. Still rooting Zig with the auto. But then great from him to Q to the other side. And killed Chaser.
Someday couldn't keep on the turret for much longer. Still going to try and bully hard with that triple Doran's Ring build as well. We talked about being able to step up into the pressure, and Someday always thought the pressure was huge in Korea because he's a bona fide celebrity over there as well with how long he's been a dominant top laner, many people saying top 3 in the world. So this is another time where he definitely does have to prove himself. You bring him in to North America and then exit in the first round of playoffs, it's got to be a big disappointment.
Someday has the most LCK finals appearances at 3, tied with Smeb. Also, last split, Someday, and actually 2 splits ago, both splits last year in 2016, Someday was second in MVP points behind Smeb both times. Guy has been a carry top laner. He's done huge works for the teams that he's been on. But Dignitas right now seems like they don't work unless he's giving stuff to the team.
And, I mean, we just kind of got done saying it. It's a disappointment if they get knocked out in the quarterfinals. And you got this guy who's an MVP in the LCK, who's a common finalist in the LCK. And I'm pretty sure most sources that you might ask would say that LCK competition's a little bit rougher than its NA counterpart.
Who have you been talking to, Captain Flyers?
Who have I been talking to hear this blasphemy?
No. Absolutely correct. They are the preeminent region in League of Legends, but someday needs to find success here as well.
Now, look at this. This bottom lane really hasn't been touched in terms of pressure from the jungle, and Lod stepped on a trap there that he really couldn't quite see.
He's the peacemaker for his troubles, too.
This turret might go down, just 2v2.
Goodness.
This feels like Arrow has taken stun over the last 2 weeks, and it's been like, this is how we're playing lane. They're doing all the time. Like, I'll turn on the stream at like 2:30 a.m., and it's like, oh, they're still playing.
Nope,
They're
still grinding.
going.
Still out there.
He's been training both supports, both rookies. They need this pressure. And look at this, Inori gonna come down bottom to give the last finishing touch here on the turret.
And this is what we wanted to see in game number 1 from Dignitas.
Back away, give it to Arrow.
Make sure you secure this first
going
blood
to.
turret. And
Yep.
Phoenix 1 does it right.
Yep, they
All
back
about
off.
the Arrow.
Make sure Arrow gets it, and they also make it so it kills about one more creep there.
That's because. Oh, good flash away from Ryu, surviving that Shurima shuffle.
And that's the difference between pretty much like people who are middle of the pack mid laners and high top mid laners, because these guys will flash when they see like that's a situation where he's going for the kill, right? Keen, last time he played it, I remember him constantly shoving the enemy mid laner into his team over and over again. Got about 3 kills that way, where Ryu's just gonna blow flash, make sure that he doesn't die, and gets 2 ultimates for it.
Does have to be careful now, though.
Yes.
You got to remember when the other team has the ability to make a play. Inori was bottom lane, so the next play was for Team Dignitas to make something on the top side, since that's where they had the numbers advantage. And Ryu was very cognizant of that.
But he likes to play forward so much. the Ryu stat. He's punishable. He's super punishable. But it's also funny, too, because Faker plays that far forward a lot, because it's the whole philosophy of how you approach the game of pressure equals wards, not the other way around. So you have to push first to get, it's like chicken or the egg. The pressure comes first, then the wards. You don't get wards and then pressure, because you're never going to get those wards without the proper pressure first. So he's always kind of a pressure point before P1 to push on.
It also looks like Arrow's going to go for Blade of the Ruined King Caitlyn, since he started with the Vamp Scepter. Blade of the Ruined King first on everything.
Just fit it into the build. And hey, Lod, that looks like a Blade of the Ruined King component to me, Jack.
Could be.
All right.
Could have slipped it.
Bork versus Bork.
I don't think he would, but he
I know, right? It's like it beat you, so
Okay.
oh.
Lod popping the flash.
Yeah, making sure that Inori doesn't flash after him. Inori also has ultimate, so would have an extra movement speed increase.
Ooh. Okay. Good damage there onto Keen, but no summoner spells forced out. Keen recognizing that he wasn't actually in any danger of being killed, so can just walk himself away from that one.
You know, you wonder where they're going to be moving Arrow and Stunt next, or whether they just try and keep trading farming that bottom side. It's all about moving this Caitlyn around early on in the game and getting as much early pressure as possible.
They do have CS advantages in every role on the side of Phoenix 1 right now. Even if they're very minuscule in some of those roles, they're still there.
It's interesting because that really hasn't happened throughout these last 2 games, because Ryu was sometimes down in farm from roaming against Keen. Zig is pretty much even most of the time, but Arrow got pretty much destroyed in one of the games, and then the next one, he was up, but Ryu wasn't. So now that they're all winning, we saw what it looks like when Phoenix 1 is winning across the board. It's pretty rough, but it's actually kind of just even. You baited me, Flowers.
Zig getting back around here a little bit. Dropped the ulti just to escape. All right, he heard the Rengar roar, and he had to get the hell out of town.
Yeah, and it was smart of him also to just save his playful trickster as long as possible during that fight, because if he ever does get ulted by someday, he'll be able to pop it. And the Rengar ult being used in the top side means Phoenix 1 can just move down for the Mountain Drake.
Oh, there's that cognizance you were talking about. Keeping track of where the enemy jungler is and exploiting that for whether it's to avoid their play or make your own.
It's once you get to the professional scene, as a jungler, everything that you do can be exploited. You gank, and it's a successful gank. Top lane has to back off, because there's no way you're affecting that part of the map for the next minute. So there's constant things like that. And when you counter jungle, you kind of force the enemy jungler to go a certain path as well.
Ryu still with that small lead for himself in the farm. Got his Sorcerer's Shoes in his Lost Chapter, so mana's not really going to be an issue. Plus those shockwaves will hit that much harder. Sheen done for Zig. Means we're likely going to see him going for that Trinity Force build that the Bruiser Fizzes all go for.
Interesting as well with the Corruption Potion Double Dark Seal we talked about. The Dark Seal is sort of unique in the fact that the stacking mechanism doesn't stack. That's unique, but you do get extra health regeneration on your potions the more Dark Seals you get. So he ups his sustain when he goes double Dark Seal Corruption Potion as opposed to just one.
Phoenix One enjoying a 1,000 gold lead right now, so it's not crazy, but it's still a solid early game from this team that is looking pretty comfortable with it.
And what just happened right there is Dignitas were going to try to make a 3-man play on the bot side, and P1, Arrow and Stunt stayed there, waited for Inori to actually sync up with them until they move forward. They moved forward as a unit, and Ryu had mid priority. He was going to roam down. It would have been a 4v3 collapse. So you can see P1 are still trying to go after plays, or at least counter plays that they think Dignitas would be going for.
Yeah, and as of now, Phoenix One still has a stranglehold over the tone of this series. They have completely taken control since Game 2, and it's kind of on them to not let Team Dignitas back into this. When we know Team Dignitas hasn't had a strength of creating plays. So if Phoenix One just builds on what they did in the last game, win their lanes solidly, ward properly, pressure the lanes, they can win that way. Because Arrow has been so solid in the late game, as has Ryu. They're going to win that team fighting phase as long as they don't get run over by Dignitas early, is the way I think they should be feeling.
As long as they don't open up those avenues for Dignitas to find their way back into this series. They've got the momentum for themselves right now. We kind of talked a little bit about momentum in terms of its overall season meaning and how both these two were rebounding in the second half. But in this series, it's all about P1.
Yeah, and this is a play that happened last game as well. When they switch Arrow and Stunt to the lane, they put Zig on the bottom side. And last game, Team Dignitas 4-man dove him. Zig needs to back away and not die to this.
Yeah, he actually just threw out his Shark, I believe, for minions or damage there, just to clear the wave, and now it's back a little bit, so it gives him tempo top.
Yeah, it's always a balance when you're left on an island like this as the top laner between delaying as much as possible without suffering a fatality. Notice how there's no one defending at all on Sumday's side, so that's actually a wave faster that Phoenix One is going to be able to get it. So Zig, in essence, played this better than Sumday, who rotated there to help the turret push because he delayed one wave, whereas Sumday didn't.
He actually delayed it a lot. I went back to look at it. He threw out the fish, max range. It's this gigantic AoE. It killed all of the minions except for 2. So the Fizz ultimate actually did a ton of work there to just delay and allow them to push topside so they can rotate. And this might even be a Rift Herald because you bought so much time with that play from Zig.
Very seldom taken is the Rift Herald, one of those objectives that normally finds himself falling by the wayside, but Phoenix One has found a good opportunity to pick him up this game.
Oh yeah, CS replay.
Oh no, this is going to be beautiful.
Yeah. Perfectly timed, dude.
And they just die. There's not even like a turret shot on top of it. It's like 3 get by, and that's what gets them the Rift Herald, is those little games of inches there. Role player.
Yeah.
Well, he's playing the role of a guy who wants to win right now. Clearing out those waves, keeping his team where they need to be, providing that Rift Herald buff. I believe they gave that over to Inori.
Yes, they did. Give him a little bit more durability in
and burst
1v1 situations and burst. Very seldom taken. This buff doesn't usually have much of an impact on the game, but when you have that tempo advantage that Zig gained by throwing that fish out, it gave them kind of almost free time to go for it.
Exactly. There's way more things that are better to do on the map, like pushing minion waves, etc. But they had already pushed top. They had the extra time. They didn't have enough to really take a tier 2, so they go for the Rift Herald that you barely ever take. And the fact that Inori has it, it's just kind of for jungle clearing. You can invade and clear a little bit faster there too. Feel a little bit safer. So far, it's only been 1 kill and 2 kills. Just the ones that were traded top, and it's just been macro over and over again here. Off of winning lanes. P1 were able to win bottom with no help at all, with just Arrow and Stunt and the matchup.
And you said it, chat. All they've got to do, play strong like this. Don't make any mistakes. Dig really doesn't do that well at saying, okay, we're pulling the trigger right here, let's go.
Yeah, they're a counter team. They love to counter your plays and collapse on those. So we're seeing P1 go for macro plays, out-rotating you, and those types of things. Now they're going on special.
Not really having a whole lot of a chance. Inori going to be forced to flash away. Wild Growth making sure nothing bad happens there as the TP is channeled, but canceled by Zik.
Yeah, but that is the type of play Team Dignitas can be prone to making when they're not all on the same page. They should be knowledgeable that so many people on Phoenix One are missing. That was a 3-man death brush, and he checked through the dangerous zone.
Right now, Infernal's coming up in a few seconds, but
Oh, okay, Shockwave's not going to connect. Chase is going to be in some trouble, though. The fish seals his fate. Someday now potentially in some danger of his own. Instead gets himself out, utilizing the flash. Phoenix One, though, has an easy ticket to punch for Infernal.
I was really impatient by Dignitas there. They actually had a summoner spell advantage. They had all their summoner spells up, whereas we had already seen a lot of flashes and exhaust or heals blown from P1. So you didn't have to check that for a good while. Special was down, so it was a 4v5 at best. Dignitas looks like getting a little bit nervous, but there's a
good opportunity for Dignitas, so manages to grab that freebie onto the enemy top laner.
Yeah, that was
And it goes to
definitely a
Lot.
spot where Zig did not expect to be warded, but we're going to watch this fight one more time.
And this just seems greedy because there's 5 seconds on Special.
Yeah.
Throws it in, and then they keep walking forward. Walked under.
He really wanted to make a play, but he loses almost all his health, has to flash the Shockwave. Max range fish from Zig onto Chaser, a little bit of assistance there from Ryu. So really easy fight for Phoenix One.
Yeah, the Zig flank with the fish into the W. Man, the W doing triple damage after you hit them once and then getting the reset with Trinity Force is pretty disgusting on a squishy target. It's massive. Yeah, and Chaser's going for, of course, squishy build here on the Rengar early. You really don't get much help until later.
Wanting to be that potential carry from the jungle that can find the burst and still manage to take these guys out even through the Lulu and Orianna protection, but that is a tough job to do when Phoenix One is ahead like they are. It's a little over 1,000 gold though, but Phoenix One is again doing a great job of controlling these elemental drakes. We saw in game number 1 that they had an over 70% Drake control rate, and we said, you know, we got to take that with a grain of salt. It might just be more about Meteos, but playing Inori every game, they've done a great job controlling these. I believe they only gave up the 1 in game number 1.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes through playing through bottom lane is a big thing. When they're playing through bottom lane and they have bottom lane advantage, you pretty much get the Drake, and Ryu loves to roam towards bottom, especially. Doesn't roam towards top a whole bunch, loves to roam towards bottom though.
Shockwave going to force out another flash to the Dignitas side. Phoenix One will hold their turret, but Keen responds with some good damage.
Yeah, the blue buff Azir is definitely putting in a little bit of work right here, and it's kind of peculiar. Phoenix One hadn't really created pressure anywhere else on the map, and we're still getting out pressured mid, so they fell behind a little bit on tempo just now.
Yeah, the game's back to dead even, quite honestly. 2 turrets to 2. Gold's pretty much matched up on the dot. Teleport not going to be coming through from Someday there.
Lose their top turret, so the gold is only about 400 apart between these two teams. Phoenix One have been playing slow, getting some objectives, but we do have to talk about how those have been evened up in terms of turrets. Not so much in terms of Drakes, though.
Nori looking for Keen. Oh, Keen very low, and now he's going to be popped. The damage continues to come in onto Special, who's got no way out. Zig was going to be there even if he did. P1, as soon as we start to talk about them losing their momentum, losing their tempo, they immediately find it right back, and now they're onto the tier 1.
Yeah, and so many of these plays throughout this series have actually just been Phoenix One playing the map better than Team Dignitas. If you look at the spread of Team Dignitas while Keen and Special are in River, they're the only 2 people pushed up that far on the map, and the rest of their team is split off in the side lane, so Phoenix One pounces.
And you know, the difference between a team that knows how to take advantage of those macro elements and that knows how to translate smaller wins into quick victories is something that separates mid-tier teams from high-tier.
Yeah, Ezreal is top, Rengar is in red buff, Someday is in bottom on Nautilus, and X-Special is going for an ult on Inori. What's going to happen right there? The entire Phoenix One, or 4 of the Phoenix One members collapse on and pick up a double kill.
Yeah, Keen's walking forward trying to punish Stunt for clearing a ward, but Inori is 100% ready for that. And Ryu blows the flash to pick up the kill. You have to assume Stunt probably wasn't by himself doing that. Especially if you didn't have your team around you, like you said, Jet.
Phoenix One looking like a team that could potentially take this in a 3-0 if they keep it up. 2,000 gold lead for themselves, defending that tier 1 still to the death, not allowing Dignitas to get it.
And there were a lot of question marks for Phoenix One. Who are they starting? What does the team even look like with Stunt and Inori as the 2 starters here? Because we haven't seen them together ever. And it's been a while since you've seen Inori actually perform well. Because the last series he played, 0-2. If they start looking like this and start having a little more control, means that Phoenix One are starting to look like that 3rd best team. Again, worthy of that 3rd seed.
Inori wants to go in here on the top side. Lon getting bursted very rapidly, but now returning some pain to Wild Growth. Trying to keep Inori alive, not going to be doing the job just yet, but Zig's able to make his way into the fight. Lod is down a 1-for-1.
What are you doing, Zyrene?
Caster curse.
Telling Inori that he's playing solid. He goes in way too early there, but it was because he saw the opportunity onto Lod. He just needed to pull back a little bit earlier in that play. Could have been a lot cleaner. Gives it a little bit back towards Team Dignitas, but they still do pick up the kill on a lot.
Yeah, he had a QSS, so he's like, I'm going in, I'm going in. Even if they ulti me with the Malzahar, I've still got this.
Yeah.
Not quite.
The ulti isn't the only thing that keeps you alive.
Exactly.
QSS doesn't save you from the 15 auto attacks you take to the face from Lod.
Hey, it's the Blade of the Ruined King. It's healing him so much. You don't expect that from the Ezreal. Revolutionary build here today.
Yeah, I mean, Lulu is very far behind him, but Inori really wanted to go for this play early. And he actually gets an isolation onto Lod, which is what he flashes for. But then he's in silence, and 3 Voidlings are kind of smacking him a little bit.
Yep.
So the rest of the team isn't quite able to get there. It was a 5-man play they were pulling off there. If they get that pick clean, they might actually go for an early Baron with the Mountain Drake, which is, I think, what he really wanted. But it doesn't quite go as they planned.
Mountain Drake, 20 seconds away right now as Dignitas hangs around the area, clearing out some of that vision.
Oh, man. Just seeing that hit from Arrow onto the Nautilus do pretty much nothing. That's the attack speed, Caitlyn with the Blade of the Ruined King.
Yeah, it's
harder to kill, but not incredibly effective against the tank.
yeah, the damage isn't going to be coming in until he can get some penetration against that Ninja Tabby Sunfire Cape setup.
Yeah, we're looking at like 4, 5 items.
Yeah, it's a way away. But Phoenix 1 still in a comfortable spot. And you know, looking at these teams, Dignitas though, they will grab themselves an elemental thing.
Yeah, Phoenix One's going to try and use this to take down a middle-tier turret or gate a fight right here.
Sunday makes his way onto Ryu. He's going to be frontlining very well. Zig can't really soak damage that effectively right there. Has to back himself away. Remember, Zig isn't tanky yet.
That was really well done by Someday and Team Dignitas. And this is kind of the cost here of Arrow's earlier build, not having that Infinity Edge, not able to shred tanks whatsoever. I've seen the Blade of the Ruined King Hurricane work with the Lulu because you're getting so much picks attack speed damage, but really on Caitlyn, you're used to seeing that double Z Infinity Edge, and having the Blade of the Ruined King, as Irene mentioned, does make it a 4-item actual power spike.
And I like what Inori did right there. He walks up, threatens to steal away the blue, and makes Chaser smite it. So even though he doesn't get the buff, he keeps it off the key.
Yeah, and another thing, too, with the Caitlyn doing immense damage is her headshot actually scales with critical strike chance. And it's so much damage when you have an Infinity Edge, but he's not getting those gigantic crits in there. Traps aren't really just giving him huge pot shots on people either. So it's going to be a bit attack speed based.
Still very hard to kill, good lane pressure.
Yep, we'll keep getting the shield and movement speed from Lulu and Orianna so we can walk up and maybe take 200 HP off the turret, but someday TP'd look for a flank.
Ooh.
Good defense from Dignitas. The dredge line not finding its way onto the Lulu, though, so Dignitas will hold their defense, but not find the counterattack just yet, as P1 tries to get in position to keep their own Tier 1 in some good shape.
Yeah, a lot of wave pressure back and forth right here, centering around the mid lane. You can see Keen trying to shove that bottom wave, which gives Phoenix One a lot of confidence. No vision here at the Baron area. Nice two-shot barrage.
Good scouting.
Last 2 times that you got picks on Phoenix 1, because vision and brushes, that time they don't fall for it.
Lesson. Third time's the charm.
Not going to fall for it this time.
You can see Keen getting back to base, so Dignitas doesn't want anything to do with the fight right now. Rylai's Crystal Scepter and Nashor's Tooth done for the Azir. Pretty much the core that you expect Azir to need to really be an effective champion.
And speaking of that difference there in mid lane, 1,400 gold up for Ryu. He's a large part of this advantage that they have. And also Zig's about 700 up himself. So we're seeing the solo laners here be the big carries, where jungle you see is even, same with 80 carries and supports.
And we said we were keeping eyes on Ryu, the guy who's made this series his own so far, doing it again this game, 2-0-3. 2 items completed, working on that Leandri's Torment next. And when you have that flat magic penetration, including the Sorcerer's Shoes that have already been completed as well, if you can land one of those shockwaves onto a value target like the Azir or the Ezreal, they are just going to be completely removed from the equation.
Yeah, I think at this point, there's 3 different champions that Ryu can straight up 100-0 with the full Orianna combo. He's very strong with the 270 CS at 25 minutes, so absolutely making every single game count this year.
And he's got 2 penetration items.
Oh!
That's not one of the 3.
That's not one of them, no. Ryu now in some trouble. Going to be Wild Growth, barely kept alive. Chaser looking to grab the kill. Can't quite do it. Someday now having to back himself out as Arrow's getting shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot. Ace in the hole coming through. Finds its way onto Someday. P1 maybe looking to go for a little bit more here.
And
1 for 1 so far. Zig did die in the fight along with Chaser.
Arrow's getting some HP back from clearing the wave, so he's back to full here, and they have the top side priority. They're going to look for a little bit of a wraparound.
Yeah, they're hoping the Team Dignitas will stick around and they can still try and keep this Baron pressure on. The Caitlyn plus the Kazakhs can kill it very quickly.
And they
They
have a
might
mountain.
start it here.
They
They're
It's a
expecting
risky
to call.
play. It's a risky play. They could
Keen's
go
gonna
for
blow
it.
There it is.
All right, they've discovered what's happening.
But they might just try
Phoenix
rush.
1 does not have a lot of health bars. They got to be able to take this one down very quickly if they can. They've got it, but it was Arrow who had to secure. That was way too close.
That was way too close. That was like 67, 87 HP, and Redemption was coming down, and Ori kind of timed the smite with a Q there and wasn't good.
No, it looked like he smote early and left it with a very low amount of health. We're going to watch this fight right here. He gets the shockwave on a Chaser. He does have Hex Drinker as well, and then is never really a part of this fight. So it gets pretty dicey within the middle of it. But Zig isn't quite tanky yet when he jumps in. And as we mentioned, while Arrow does have sustain, is not the greatest damage dealer within the fights.
Yeah, and he's also going for a little bit more defensive and slash survivability in his build, because now he's got a Null Magic Mantle, buys a QSS.
But this is the benefit, though, of the Blade of the Ruin King, is he heals to full right afterwards. And they just make the call for Baron. We knew they had Mountain Drake, we knew they had Kazakhs, and Caitlyn to kill it quickly. But, Zyrene, you're talking about this. Smite at level 13 does roughly 760 damage. So when does he actually smite? Because Redemption's coming in. 900.
Oh my god.
He smoted 807 for a 740 damage smite. So it's the...
It was down to 30 HP.
Yeah.
Baron had 30 HP at one point. Someday in some trouble. Gonna be munched by that weird fish, shark, bunny, rabbit,
Watership down.
nightmare critter thing. Yeah, we had this conversation the other day.
That's
That
the
thing,
official skill name.
not just from my nightmares. It's actually from a movie. But speaking of nightmares, Dignitas not exactly living the dream right now.
Yeah.
Phoenix 1 bearing down in this tier 2 with a Baroned up team with a Caitlyn.
This is the nightmare as well. You go to sleep the night before your quarterfinals. You do not want to get 3-0'd, especially with the way Phoenix 1 has been playing the map. Team Dignitas need to make a play here to keep their season alive.
P1, they're making sure this doesn't become a nightmare for them. Wait for the worst, but hold on.
Yeah.
All right, keen
Far
for
away
flash.
Yep.
Here's Someday.
Sunday's here on the flank. Nori half HP for the fight. They're going to be bursted down. He can't do anything. This might be exactly what Dignitas needs, or is it? Stun big! Shockwave! MVP material right there. A double kill for Ryu. A double kill for Arrow. Lot is on the run.
Ryu is honed in this game. 4-man Shockwave during that fight with the Baron buff. They're going to push through for the inhibitor.
My goodness gracious, this man is just doing everything this series. Ryu, 4-0-6 on the Orianna. Lod will not defend this inhibitor 1v3.
The only kill that Ryu has missed out on is that first one that went over in top lane on a dive. That's the only one, 100% KP. Besides that, he has been doing so much work. Not even just this game, the whole series, Ryu has shown up today.
Just when you thought the fight was going to turn around, the start of that fight felt so good for Team Dignitas because they initiated with that special onto Zig as the rest of the team was distracted, falling back for Someday. So you really couldn't ask for a better start to that fight.
Absolutely true. When the top laner just gets killed for free, and you've got Someday already soaking in the back line, the setup is there, but when the Shockwave is too,
Yeah, they picked off the support and the top laner, but they didn't get those core damage dealers. You'll see that here, where he actually goes for a long trek to do blast cones, which will take away his home guard because it puts him in combat.
Still a great flank.
And then onto Arrow here, he's left by himself. They pick off Zig in the front.
Yeah, but you always have to track the Orianna ball in these team fights. Moves it
Lord.
in, instant Shockwave.
Boom! And then just Runan's Hurricane, ba ba ba, right in there from Arrow.
kapow.
Wow, that could have been a quadra, but it's two doubles. It's a two pair right there with the imports.
That was so well done. Look at that excitement.
His stunts got enough excitement for both him and the Mafia boss Ryu.
If there is If there's a definition of 4-man shockwave to turn around a team fight, that is it.
That's what you need to
That
do.
reaction cam.
He's dead during that play, too.
Yeah.
So he gets to
That's
do
all you
that.
can do is cheer.
It's the morale support as well.
We've all been there. You've got a game in solo queue. Your screen's black and white, and your teammate pulls off something absolutely incredible. All you can do is just celebrate, man.
Your death becomes much more palatable. You're like, yeah, they got
like,
me.
I set that up.
This was
I
for
was
a
a
reason.
part of this.
I didn't screw this up completely.
This was the game-winning path.
Carry me. But still, I definitely think like everybody's been doing great work so far.
Oh, yeah.
Done as well. I think that this game, they were able to just bully that bottom lane, get that turret pretty much by themselves.
And it's not quite a 5,000 gold Baron power play, but it is darn close. 4,870 gold into P1 pockets.
And they're on the brink as well of pushing this into the semifinals. It's very important for so many of these guys to especially make it deep into the playoffs. If they can make it 3-0 as well, it's so much more of a statement.
Exactly, the statement. A lot of people didn't know what P1 was going to bring in terms of the roster. If Meteos was still going to start, but these guys starting today looks pretty solid right now.
And let's not pretend like this is all that there is to it. Just winning today, that means you still got to play against TSM or Cloud9. Well, actually, it's definitely
they'll
going to be Cloud9. They're 100% against Cloud9 if they win this. But still, Cloud9, hell of a high-caliber team in the North American LCS. You've got to make a statement so people don't just immediately count you out.
It's not easy to initiate through here with no Baron buff. The Azir clears the minions so well. They've already opened the bottom inhibitor, but they need to wait for those super minions to crash into the turret. So we may need to wait, but it all swings on whether or not Ryu can land that shockwave or if Team Dignitas try for another flank.
And we came into today saying this isn't going to look like your normal
Swing and a miss.
3rd seed versus 6th seed, but this is actually looking like
It is
a 3rd seed
looking
versus
a lot
6th
like
seed.
the normal 3rd versus 6th matchup. Absolutely. Phoenix 1 has just turned everything into the on position, kicked it into overdrive, and Dignitas is just struggling to keep up.
Yeah. Super minions coming in from the bottom side. Zig gets to split push, and they do a 4-1 since they have now that core of having Ryu involved instead of being a split pusher on that Orianna.
Someday still just trying to answer some of these super minions in the bottom lane. Of course, Dignitas, they still only have 1 inhibitor down, so it's not like you have this massive amount of extra pressure flowing into the base just yet, and that is definitely what they are trying as hard as possible to prevent, because we all know how hard it is to come back from a 3 inhib or even a 2 inhib kind of game.
Yeah, and even this game, if they're going to come back, it might actually have to happen around Baron or Elder Dragon. Baron will be up in 20 more seconds against the Mountain Drake, as well as Phoenix 1's vision control. It's very difficult for them to move in there. Azir does have that tremendous scaling, though, if they can catch the right type of choke point, and that's kind of what Team Dignitas has got to hope for.
He's got those 3 core items, too, on the Azir. If you're looking for these mid laners, if they can make a hero play, they can end the game.
He's also got the Elixir of Intelligence. He knows the next team fight is potentially the last one if they lose it, so he's all in. Interesting to note as well that Laud has the Iceborne Gauntlet this game as opposed to Trinity Force. A little bit more of a defensive option, not quite as much damage, helps with the kiting.
Yeah, it allows you a little more time to get the Blade of the Ruined King healing back up. Don't completely agree with it because there's so much magic damage, but
It's an interesting choice. It's not one that you would normally see.
yeah, because
It's more of a tech choice.
Because Trinity Force has HP on it and the like, so it'll help you more against shockwaves and whatnot. Well, another Baron.
3-man Baron.
It's gone.
Yeah, there's not even a chance to stop that one on the side of Dig.
Oh,
Fire
Zig.
off True Shot. All right, Zig
Zig was never there
all
in the
right.
first place. And now it's about
Do they
stopping
stop
the
the
recalls
backs?
as well.
Yeah,
And
they've
they
actually stopped them all.
those
They stopped them all.
But now they're forcing some kind of a 4v5 fight. Is this really what Phoenix 1 wants? Stunt getting himself away. Anori going to be threatening the back line towards Laud. Zig making his way onto the Nexus.
They're delaying
Fighting back. Arrow staying alive. Stunt's going to be using the Wild Growth, keeping himself trucking as well.
Inori stopping
Zig
back
is
too.
on to Nexus turret number 2. He's got quite a few Baroned up minions. TP going to be channeled. Someday trying to
the
get
ball!
back and do something here.
Oh,
The Shark is thrown out.
Didn't
Someday
stop.
is not at very high HP. He won't be able to protect this turret. He's got to just try to protect the Nexus. But Zig is very mobile, getting himself away now. Enough Dignitas members come back to stop him. But Arrow and Ryu have made their way into the Dignitas base.
And I mean, there's nothing to save the Nexus, so Arrow got to be a little bit careful since there are 4 people alive, but they make significant progress towards ending this game.
yeah. Oh, now you have to worry about all of those super minions that will be coming through the bottom lane because there's no turrets to help kill them.
Yeah, Azir is the ultimate base defense in these games, but that means he would be on base defense duty, so Elder Dragon up in 7 seconds. Arrow might just stick around and start this one.
Arrow's 3-0-1 with multiple items completed. He's got armor penetration, lots of attack speed like we've already chimed in on. And he's got Ryu right next to him, who is easily the scariest guy on the Rift right now.
Almost full build as well. Ryu is half an item away from full build. Keen, 2 full items away. Still has to sell Doran's.
Yeah, it's potentially a last stand here for Team Dignitas if they can get a fight at Elder Drake. But it's going to go down pretty fast. I mean, Keen is off killing blue buff, so that's not much of a last stand.
Yeah, they're not really trying to fight a whole lot for this. True Shot Barrage comes out, but
The spites haven't been great.
yeah,
That wasn't even a spike.
That's right.
No, I mean, to be fair, Ryu did a lot of damage.
yeah. But the smite still
MIA.
off cooldown. So it's they got it.
They got the Elder Dragon.
Yes,
Wasn't stolen.
This is a timeline where they have Elder Drake, so everything's fine. For Phoenix 1. Dignitas, though, things are quickly drifting away from fine and any synonyms.
Elder Drake and Baron, the ultimate combination, not to mention 0 Nexus turrets.
Yeah.
So they're going to actually push the 2 lanes that still have turrets in them right now as the super minions crash to give them as much spread on what Team Dignitas can muster as possible.
And now they have Zig in the top lane with teleport, and they also have Arrow with the Infinity Edge completed. Just needs to get one little half piece of an item now for the Mercurial, but that's it. They're going to keep shielding him, walk up, bam, get the turret.
The last stand of Dignitas begins here. They either hold the line or their playoff dreams for Spring Split 2017 will end with their Nexus. Phoenix 1 playing it slow, playing it steady. They've got 2 different cannon minions enchanted with Baron buff up there in the top side. And Nori and Ryu both just hanging out on the other side of that wall, seeing if they can get any kind of a chance here.
Look at that, just speed up for Arrow, just everything. He's got 2 supports just standing behind him. Ryu's not even threatening Shockwave or anything like that. Just give him the ball.
And by the way,
Yeah.
Nexus is exposed,
Hey,
guys.
they're in the base. You've got to fight, Dignitas. This is it. Zig's behind him, going for the Nexus. Shark onto Lod. The fish comes out. Zig's still looking to make the moves if he can. They're in the back line. Anori firing off the rockets. Lod going to be kept alive right now. Anori's going to be taken low. Shockwave onto 2. 2 dead on the side of Phoenix 1. The Nexus is going to be targeted.
That's
it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Phoenix 1 is going to Vancouver.
People were wondering after week 9 when Phoenix 1 goes 0-2 and swaps around a lot of their players, whether they'd be able to pull it together for quarterfinals. Emphatically, yes, a 3-0 over Team Dignitas.
Incredibly clean from them. Those were lane phase victories across the board. Game 1 seemed to be the only one that was close, and the shot calling prevailed, but then 2, 3 seemed rather easy for them.
Yeah, and when we say lane phase victories, they were taking small advantages and turning them into victories, which is not an easy thing to do. They were consistently moving around the map better than Team Dignitas, and unfortunately for Team Dignitas, their season ends here.
Dignitas, we said they went through a hell of a fight, a hell of a lot of obstacles to make their way to the playoffs. Unfortunately,
so happy.
it ends here, but Phoenix 1, man, they need to be happy. They should be happy.
Stunt,
what a show.
Stunt just beat his old team that traded him away to Phoenix 1.
That's got to be, what's the word? You got to feel justified in that. Feel like they made the wrong choice. You were the person who was able to come back and say, hey, you shouldn't have traded me.
Yeah, it was a backup on Team Dignitas to a starter on Phoenix 1. It's a pretty strong ascent throughout the year. And now some relief.
The 2
for
OG
Nori and
members.
Zig. The 2 members that were on Phoenix 1 when they fell to the promotion tournament and now are here for their move into the semifinals.
After a showing like that, I feel like you've earned the right to slump down in your chair a little bit. Just take a deep breath and take it all in. You're going to the semifinals. You get to continue playing further now up against Cloud9. We said that's going to be their next objective. It's going to be one hell of a series.
Yeah, and you think about last time they played Cloud9, that's the 0-2 series where Stunt went 0-7, got completely blasted by Smoothie, and then they subbed him out for Shady.
So rough times in that one, but Phoenix 1 will look to make some sort of a redemption play for their whole team. We talked about Anori's redemption, his storyline. Well, now it's time for the whole team to hop on against that Cloud9 matchup.
Absolutely, that's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and the big thing I want to add, just final thing here is, we talk about lane phase victories. Those are much harder to get up against the likes of Cloud9, who have Jensen, Impact, and then even Sneaky was able to destroy the bottom lane last time alongside Smoothie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, to hear more about the clean 3-0 from Phoenix 1 today, let's send it over to Dash and the analysts.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. That is exactly right. A clean 3-0 for Phoenix 1. I mean, game 1 being the closest of the 3, but games 2 and 3 just kind of compounding to make a statement here from Phoenix 1 saying we are back. We are deserved of our number 3 slot moving into playoffs, and they're going to put up a fight against the likes of C9 come next week.
Ryu definitely making a statement there. Arrow as well. Those guys, good imports on Phoenix 1.
Okay, the best thing I have to say about P1 is like it never feels like they're too desperate late game because they trust their carries so much. Their carries are just that good. So it always feels like if Dig doesn't end the game, they'll lose. And I feel like P1 never gets that type of pressure because they're okay if the length of the game elongates all the way. They're okay with however long the game goes.
Absolutely. We heard them talking there, or as Irene talking there, about how in this game in particular, it was really just one lanes across the board for Phoenix 1, but how that challenge will be even greater against C9. But isolated to this matchup, let's just kind of reflect on where we were at the beginning of the day to where we ended up. Let's go back to that top lane because we focused a ton on the bot lane, but Zig here against Someday pulling out the Fizz, so showing us a little bit more of an aggressive style champion, being able to pick up that Trinity Force, playing quite well once again.
Yeah, no criticisms for Zig, honestly. I mean, he played exactly kind of how we thought he was going to play and did a very good job. Being that role player for the team.
Now, the big play that turned the game, or rather, not turned the game, put the nail in the coffin. 4 for 2 in the bot lane here. I'm going to pull this one up. Scar, walk me through it.
All right, on this play, top lane, it's somebody just flanked, got a really good flank position. They just killed Zig. Watch the Warrior Ball here. It's really hard to see. He gets a great one in four people, hits it, and that's game over.
Off of his own reposition, too, right? Just Q, immediate ult. Follows and pulls all 4 of them.
This looked like a great position because at the start of the fight, it was 20 seconds before this, both Fizz and the Ori used ulti, and so they had 2 huge ultis down, but the Ori had so much CDR, the ulti came back up before the fight started.
For that state of the game, that was definitely the best look that Team Dignitas were going to get, and they started out really well, and that was actually a team fight saving move from Ryu right there.
Yes, absolutely. Big plays from him across the board in all 3 games. For now, though, we have some time. We're going to send it over to Jat, who's waiting on stage to get the P1 jungler's thoughts on that series.
Thanks, Dash. And yes, I'm joined by Nori. First off, congratulations on the 3-0 victory, but I have to ask you first about being put into the starting lineup at the end of the split and for the playoffs here. You had been trading a lot of time with Meteos. How did it feel to get the 3-0 here as the starter?
It feels really good. I think I was on a pretty big slump before, like, going to Vancouver and coming back. I saw my team do really well without me, and that kind of like hurt my confidence, but it shouldn't, but it was just tough to take in because seeing the team succeed without you was kind of hard because you kind of lowers your value and how you felt about the team. But like slowly, the team's been supporting me a lot. Like the organization, P1, like they believed in me a lot and helped me like push me to believe in myself more, and I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, and you mentioned how you learned a lot while you were out. When you were on Phoenix 1 at first, you were a lot of the carry in most of the games. What did you learn during that time off to come back and be more successful with this 3-0?
I learned how to play Ivern, but yeah, I think watching Meteos is amazing. Like he's such a cool guy and he's such a great player and his communication is so good. And I try to take as much as I could from him by watching the scrims and put into my own style without like still changing my style. I still want to be a carry jungler, but I still want to be able to support my team if they need me to be on a support jungle.
Yeah, well, it worked out very well today. I want to ask you a little bit more about the series. I know the first game was incredibly back and forth, and then it felt as the series progressed like it got more and more controlled. How was the team progressing throughout the series as far as mentality and just general strategy?
Yeah, I think we didn't know how good Dignitas was. Like, it was just a lot of wondering like how good they are, how much they practice, and I think they improved a lot, but still I think we improved even more. So I think Dignitas is a really good team, but we just practiced so goddamn hard for this, and I think it paid off.
Yeah, and you've also been pretty outspoken about wanting to go to Vancouver. Even if you guys don't beat Cloud9 in the semifinals, you will be in Vancouver for that 3rd or 4th place match. What will it be like playing to that Vancouver crowd?
It's like, it's pretty hard to believe because like I just came in last split, and now this is the split my P1 makes the playoffs, and it's in Vancouver, so it's just pretty hard to believe, and I'm still like having trouble believing that I'm going to play in my hometown this fast, but I'm just so goddamn happy.
Yeah, and you guys have to play against Cloud9 next week. Do you have any quick thoughts on that matchup before we send it back to the desk?
Cloud9's pretty good, so I think we have to step it up a bit, but I think it'll be a good series.
All right, well, thank you very much, Inori. Congratulations on the 3-0 win, And we're going to send it back to Dash and the rest of the desk.
Thank you very much, Jack. Great to hear from Inori on what it took to achieve this 3-0, right? Pointing a lot towards the improvements that they made over this last week.
A lot of work.
And the effort that was put in by the team. Also throwing a nod towards Dignitas, because I'll even call back to the end of game 1. After going off air, you turned to me and you said, is Dignitas playing better or worse than we expected? And the answer was that they're playing better. So even in the losses, we're still seeing improvement out of this roster that, has basically been on an upward swing from beginning of split to where they are now, although their season or rather split ends here today.
Yeah, I just think stylistically, it's kind of a mismatch because even if Ryu didn't go crazy carry mode today, I think that their bot lane just isn't like consistently strong enough to be able to pressure P1's bot lane. And so with that in mind, that's really the only super big hole unless your jungler is better than the other jungler. And I didn't think Chaser had a super great series either.
And honestly, Stunt, improvements from the game number 1 where we're all criticizing, and rightfully so, he's getting hit by almost all the skill shots.
Right.
Definitely marked improvements from him in the subsequent games. And we always talk about the rookie factors, right? Now he has some, playoff games that he's gone through. You saw how happy he was. He'll be more confident, moving on to their next opponent.
Yeah, I'd say across the board from Phoenix One, solid play from all of them individually. Of course, we do have to recognize one player in particular as our player of the series, and that's going to be Ryu here. No surprise. From Syndra to LeBlanc to Orianna, he had big plays on all 3.
Yeah, he literally single-handedly saved their early game first game, and he saved their late game third game, and the second game he just split and created so much pressure. I think that this guy played a monster series, and he's been very unassuming throughout the year, I think. Outside the very first weeks, he hasn't been like, wow, that guy made a huge play, but today he had an amazing series.
Every single game, he was putting the carry in mid lane. Really, really well deserved from him.
Well, and that's the thing. If we go back to Jad's point there where he was talking to Inori about what, when you came into Phoenix One, you were the carry. Well, now you've got these 2 imports, Ryu and Arrow, who can 100% serve as carries across pretty much all stages of the game. It's an interesting dynamic for an aggressive jungler like Inori to have to sometimes take a back seat to that, but it does open, or at least feels like it opens up so many more options for P1 strategically as they move forward.
Yeah, for instance, they used to always bring in Meteos, have them play front lines so that their top lane can get enabled to play more bruiser style. And this game, it felt like, although they had top lane tanks for 2 of the 3 games. The third game, he was able to play Fizz, which is more like bruiser oriented. So even with like a Kha'Zix, which may not be ideal, they were still able to play around it.
Yeah, I think it is important because one of the best things about Zig that we keep on talking about is his versatility.
Right.
And if your jungler is not versatile also to play the other half, then it really does limit that top laner. And it's really good to see both of them shine.
Versatility is going to come in handy, too, from Zig if he's going up against a possible 2 different top laners next week in C9. With their win today, Phoenix One will move on to the semifinals against C9 due to dynamic seeding, which means the winner of tomorrow's matchup between Counterlogic Gaming and FlyQuest will face TSM. Now, looking ahead to next week's showdown between Cloud9 and Phoenix One, standing in P1's way is C9's deadly top laners.
Definitely their top laners. Also, their bottom laners, I feel like. Because we talk about bottom lanes being able to punish. The Smoothie and Sneaky have been really, really good as a duo. Not to mention, actually, we're just going to name all the lanes now, I guess.
Yeah.
As great as Ryu was, like, Jensen is a different, we talk about, like, levels of NA mid laners. Jensen Bjergsen is kind of a different one. So
right. We'll dive into more of the matchups in just a second.
I ruined your...
I know, it's all right. But no, speaking of the top laners, our duo team had the opportunity to speak with them and build a piece around them. Take a look.
스크림이라든지 경기를 하고 있을 때 약간 실수가 나오면 좀 약간 걱정되긴 해요. 아, 이거는 만약 임팩트 형이었으면은 이거 되게 잘 대처를 했을 텐데. 임팩트 형이 되게 독보적이잖아요, 위치가.
All right, now you can talk, Kobe.
Yeah, nice promo there. But to me, the top laners are actually the least lane that I would highlight for that one. It would be the Jensen lane as well as the bottom lane potential to punish there.
Right. I think there'll be huge questions around Jensen's ability to rein Ryu in, given the performances that we saw out of Ryu today. Again, the expectation across the season is that Arrow will be a top performer, but given that we saw them lose the 2v2 to Sneaky Smoothie just last week, I feel like C9 will be confident in that lane. It's all about the mid lane focus, and can contracts maybe help, rein Ryu in along with Jensen?
Yep, I'm interested in the bot lane matchup and especially the jungle matchup. Like, sure, Nori had a pretty good series today, like way better than I expected or expectations coming in. But Contracts has kind of also had improvement throughout the later half of the season, and I think that it'll be interesting seeing the two match up because I don't know if necessarily they're both like top 3 in their position, but they both should be about kind of midway.
I know you don't want to talk about the top laners, but I just looked in the prompter and I have to say one more thing about them, so just hold
Go
back,
ahead.
Kobe. You can catch the premiere of the newest episode of Duos this Tuesday, April 11th. You'll learn a lot about Impact, and that's going to do it for the broadcast today. Clearly, we need some rest or something like that. So on behalf of myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Those top laners, though.
Those top laners, though!
We did see double Phoenix 1 predictions on the desk. There is a reason they are the number 3 seed. But because of the upward trajectory for Team Dignitas, almost identical with who they've beaten and who they've lost.
Now Arrow on the counterattack after Law jumps in. Two-shot barrage going to be used. Stand United comes down. Arrow's going to be dropped down first. Law's still being chased as Daisy smashes him right down. Dignitas trying to get out of this one. United going to be used. Chaser in some trouble. Killing spree for Ryu. Law going to be locked down next. More damage coming through. See you later. Stun grabbing a kill. The dragon is secured by Someday of all people, but the kill comes down onto Keen. Someday going to be going down next. Claude trying to snipe down Phoenix 1 players. He gets the kill into the AD carry. Zig and Nori chasing him down. Lulu's not getting away today.
Go! Not to lose!
Okay, good job.
Good job.
Kha'Zix, go Kha'Zix. Go back, fight back. Kha'Zix.
I'm on the block.
I'm coming. Knowledge, first knowledge. Okay, we got him.
Nice.
Ryu is doing a number on this Team Dignitas team. There are 3 people there. 3 people there, and he kills Law.
Yep.
Here's Someday.
Someday's here on the flank. Nori half HP for the fight. He's going to be bursted down. He can't do anything. This might be exactly what Dignitas needs, or is it? Stun big!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Right now, and Nori's going to be taking low. Shockwave onto 2. 2 down on the side of Phoenix 1. The next is going to be targeted. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it. Phoenix 1 is going to Vancouver.